Hey friend, if you've been beating yourself up for not making art lately, I want to tell you it's not because you're lazy, it's probably burnout. And I totally get it. I've spent most of my life in survival mode, so I totally understand how hard it can be to keep pushing, to keep creating, when everything in you is just saying, ugh, I just can't. This video is for you if your creative spark feels gone. We're gonna explore not just why this happens, but how it's tied to the world we live in and how we can gently come back to ourselves. Along the way, I will share personal stories, some wisdom, and statistics to give you real tools to heal and reconnect with your creativity. So settle in, get your little drinky drink, and let's get real. Let's start with the basics. What's the difference between burnout and laziness? Well, laziness is when you can act but choose not to. Burnout is when you want to act but you just can't. Your mind says yes, but your body says no. Psychologist Christina Maslach, a leading expert on occupational burnout and a professor at UC Berkeley, described burnout as exhaustion, detachment, and feeling like your efforts don't matter. She developed the Maslach Burnout Inventory, a tool used worldwide to understand burnout and emphasize that it's not a personal weakness, but a response to systematic stress. This model isn't just a bunch of theory, it's a mirror that reflects how we are wired as human beings. When we push ourselves for too long without rest, our brains and body rebel. Each of these symptoms, exhaustion, cynicism, and reduced productivity, are signals. Exhaustion tells us we've been overdoing it, emotionally and physically. Cynicism is our mind's way of detaching from the overwhelming demands. And reduced productivity, that feeling of I'm not good enough, is the final straw that breaks our creative spirit. And I've felt that too. Staring at a blank page, exhausted, unable to start, even though I wanted to create. It's not laziness, it's survival mode catching up with you. Though, here's something I didn't realize for years. Burnout isn't a moral failing. It's not proof that you're weak or lazy. It's a sign that you've been carrying too much for maybe a little too long. Think of it like a car engine. You can't expect it to keep running without stopping for maintenance and refueling. But our culture rarely tells us to pull over, so we keep driving until we break down. While we talk about burnout, it's also important to acknowledge the physiology behind it. Burnout literally changes how our brain and body function. Studies show chronic stress elevates cortisol, disrupts sleep, and weakens immunity, and even shrinks part of the brain responsible for memory and creativity. Now, I'm not sharing this to scare you, but to remind you that your exhaustion is real. It's not in your head, your body is trying to protect you. That's why honoring your rest isn't just emotional, it is biological. Think of it like giving your body and mind a chance to reset. Not because you're giving up, but because you are giving yourself a fighting chance to heal and thrive. This resting bumblebee tattoo I designed reminds me even the hardest workers in nature needs to rest. Unlike bees, we don't always know when to stop. Bumblebees, especially the worker bees, work tirelessly to pollinate, build, and maintain a hive, but they also know when to stop and recover. If a bee overworks itself, it risks exhaustion and even death. The bee isn't lazy, it's just tired. It's recharging for the work ahead. For us though, rest isn't always honored. Society teaches us to push through, to view rest as weakness, to feel guilty for pausing. But this B represents that resting is natural, necessary, and an act of preservation. Now, let's talk about society's role in burnout. We live in a world that glorifies hustle culture and productivity. Sociologist Karl Marx called it alienation, where we're disconnected from our work and ourselves. Max Weber described it as being trapped in an iron cage of efficiency and control. I just call it exhausting. I've spent years in this cycle trying to keep up, saying yes to everything, measuring my worth by how much I was doing, and guess what? It left me drained, anxious, and creatively blocked. The American Institute of Stress says stress costs over $300 billion a year in lost productivity, healthcare, and turnover. That's not just because the money disappears, but it's more so because when we're burnt out, we can't work, and the system we live in isn't designed to support real rest and healing. And capitalism doesn't just breed burnout, it profits from it. When we are exhausted, disconnected, and desperate for relief, we are more likely to buy quick fixes, courses, coaching, products, distractions. Recognizing this is the first step to reclaiming our power. Learning more about how capitalism and the systems affect us, from our work patterns to our nervous systems, is essential. Authors like Bell Hooks, Adrienne Murray Brown, and Andre Lord reminds us that healing isn't just personal, it's collective. Bell Hooks didn't just write about oppression and burnout, she wrote about love as a radical act. In her book, All About Love, she talks about how reclaiming love for ourselves and our community is an act of resistance against a system that teaches us to be disconnected and self-sacrificing. Now, imagine bringing that idea into your creative life. What if you approached your art, your work, and the rest with love instead of obligation? What if, instead of pushing yourself to produce, you gave yourself permission to create from a place of joy and care? Bell Hooks reminds us that love is both the means and the end of healing. And that includes loving ourselves enough to step back from the grind and reconnect with what truly matters. When we see how deeply these systems shape our lives, we can begin to heal not just for ourselves, but for our communities. And when we understand how these systems shape our stress, we can start to heal. Not overnight, not alone, but, step by step, choosing to slow your roll, reconnect, and to really value ourselves beyond what we produce. When we start to heal ourselves, we can also start to contribute to shifting these systems by refusing to participate in the grind, by creating from authenticity, by supporting others who do the same. Every small act of resistance adds up. So, why do we lose our creative fire? Marcus Aurelius once said, if you're distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Marcus Aurelius also believed in the power of stillness. In his meditation, he wrote about the importance of finding inner calm in a chaotic world. He encouraged reflecting each day on what truly matters and letting go of things outside of our control. Imagine if you approached your creative practice the same way. Instead of focusing on external expectations or anxieties, focus inward. Create not for approval, but for presence. Let stillness become a foundation for your creativity, because when you create from stillness, you create from strength. And bro, that hits deep, don't it? Burnout isn't just exhaustion. It's also how we view ourselves. When we internalize the world's pressures, we start to believe that if we're not producing, we are failing. But that is obviously not true. And Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, "The creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn." And to me, that is just a reminder that your creative power is still inside you, even if it feels so deep and buried. It's just waiting for the right conditions to grow and sprout again. Here's a journaling prompt. Write down one small creative desire you've been putting off. Then write one tiny step you can take towards it today. Just one though. Remember, baby steps. As Jean-Paul Sartre said, freedom is what you do with what's been done to you. And I so wholeheartedly believe this. You are the creator of your own destiny. You might have been handed survival mode, but you get to choose how to move forward, no matter how hard it might be. Your healing is a quiet rebellion against systems that want you to be burned out. Now, his idea of freedom isn't just about rebellion, it's about responsibility. He'd argue that even when life hands you unfair circumstances, we still have the freedom and the responsibility to choose how we respond. And that's where creative agency comes in. Yes, systems of burnout are real, but how do we choose to move through them? Whether we freeze, whether we create, or whether we rest or reconnect. That's where our power lies. He reminds us that while we can't control everything, we can control our choices one step at a time. Another thought I've been sitting with is the idea of enoughness. In a world obsessed with more and more and more content, more hustle, more visibility, what would it mean if I say I am enough to create not for the algorithm or the audience, but for yourself? This shift from performance to presence is profound. It's where creative freedom lives. It's where your art, your voice, and your vision begin to heal. Not just because they're perfect, but because they are yours. So, where are you right now? Are you resting? Are you avoiding? Are you nurturing yourself or numbing yourself? Do you need more restoration or more accountability? I've had to ask myself these hard questions. For years, I mistook avoidance for rest. I binged shows, scrolled endlessly, just partook in distractions, and called it a break. But deep down, I was scared. Scared of failing, scared of really just being seen. And when I finally started to get honest with myself and to really delve more deeper, I realized that I needed real intentional rest and a plan to reconnect with myself. Here's a simple practice when you notice yourself numbing out. Just pause, take a deep breath, ask, what do I really need right now? Give yourself permission to listen. How do you start rebuilding after you're burnt out? Well, let's go into some ways. One, you could allow yourself to rest with intention. Journaling, walking, spending time in nature. Two, allow yourself to create tiny, no pressure artwork. Enough with the perfectionism and this has to be perfect because someone's gonna see it. Open up your sketchbook, grab anything, and just start doodling or splotting down ideas on whatever you want. Nothing in mind. No one has to see it. 3, detox from hustle culture. Unfollow the toxic accounts. Set some boundaries with yourself and this kind of content. As much as this kind of content can be inspiring and full of actual value and be helpful, I think that if your whole feed is nothing but accounts that promote that kind of idealism, it can really bog down your mental state and actually do more harm than good for you. And then 4, reconnect with your why. Remember why you loved creating in the first place. Tap into the inner child. What is it that you love so much about creating? Really get in tune with it. And 5, find supportive people who understand and encourage you. It's important to recognize the kind of connections that you have that might be draining you. 6, practice mindfulness. Maybe reconnect with nature or find a suited environment where you could just exist and be. 7, give yourself permission to start over, slowly, with no judgment. 8, set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes a day to create without expectations. 9, start learning about how these systems affect you. Reading books, listening to voices that challenge hustle culture and teach new ways of being and doing. Knowledge is power. So really start with a book, a podcast, a YouTube video, a community, whatever. Start somewhere. And here is something I want you to hear. You are not powerless in this process. Yeah, the systems we live in are overwhelming, but within your personal world, you have the power to create rituals that nourish you. That could mean starting each day with 2 minutes of silence, or ending each week with a reflection on what felt good today or what didn't feel good today. These small rituals remind you that you are not just surviving, but you are reclaiming your agency one choice at a time. This whole process isn't going to be linear, and it's going to look different for everybody. Some days you will feel inspired, other days you will feel so stuck. And don't worry, that is normal. Getting out of this rut is not going to be a straight line. It's a spiral. Healing is a spiral. You will be circling back, but with a little more wisdom each time. So no, you're not lazy. You're just figuring things out. You need some time to heal. You're learning how to live and not just survive. And when you're ready, your creativity will be there waiting. So, like that little bumblebee, rest, not as an escape, but as a way to come back to yourself. And when you're ready, your spark will be waiting. If this resonated at all, tell me in the comments, where are you right now? Burned out? Resting? Rebuilding? I would love to hear your story. Like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs it. Until next time, goodbye.